Hello and welcome to another Run Disney with Robert video. If you're new here, welcome, and if you're part of the Rob Mob, welcome back. So if you're watching this video, you are probably gearing up for your first Run Disney event at Walt Disney World, or maybe you've done one, but maybe you forgot some things. So I have 10 tips here, plus an extra bonus tip of how to get possibly the best Run Disney picture that you'll ever get. That'll be bonus at the end, so make sure you stay all the way until then. Let's get into it. So my first tip is pretty simple, and it's just to have emergency, different vitamins, vitamin C, whatever, hand sanitizer, even like a mask and everything. I flew in last night and wore a mask at the airport and everything, just in case. You can never be too safe with people traveling from all over the country, all over the world in some cases, for this event. So make sure that you have that stuff on hand. First tip, pretty simple. Get it out of the way. Also, all of these tips from number 1 to number 10 are gonna be kind of in orderly fashion, if you will, from, getting ready for the race, before the race, going to bed, getting to the start line, and then even like a tip after the race is done. Second tip, and if you've run a Run Disney race, you know this, but get to bed early. I usually try to get to bed by 7 p.m., which is like crazy early. Like I like to almost be asleep by 7 p.m., not even like getting in bed, but like already in bed and drifting off to dreamland. How I did this last year was melatonin and a sleep mask. This is also very handy for after the race is done. You go back to your hotel room and you want to sleep more, but at that point it depends on the day, right? If you're doing 5K, 10K, half full, but it's anywhere from 9 o'clock to noon and the sun is out. It's not the best time to fall asleep, so this definitely does come in handy, especially if you're doing the dopey and you need to go back to sleep and recover for the next day and the next race. 2 like sub tips within tip number 2. The first one is when you check in, or if you can call ahead, I would recommend calling ahead. Check and see where your room is located and make sure it's not by the elevators. Last year, my room the night before the marathon was right next to the elevators, and I heard them going up and down the entire night. So if you can, I highly recommend just making sure your room isn't by an elevator. That's a little tip that I learned the hard way last year. And then the other sub tip is leading up to your race or races, if you're doing the Goofy or Dopey challenge, make sure that you're getting really great sleep the nights like earlier in the week. A family friend of mine who is a seasoned veteran when it comes to marathons, she did the Boston Marathon like every year for 10 years or something crazy like that. She gave me a bunch of tips before my first marathon, and one that I vividly remember thinking like, that's a really good tip and I never would have thought of that, is if the marathon is on Sunday, your sleep on Friday is the most important to get some really good sleep, because Saturday, like, your mind will just be racing and you won't get amazing sleep the night before a race. So that Friday night, make sure you get great sleep. So plan accordingly with which races you're doing. Okay, tip number 3, get to the race as early as possible. Now, keep in mind, this is coming from a get to the airport 2 hours plus early type of person, okay? So keep that in mind. But if the first bus is, at 3 a.m., I'm getting to the bus stop at like 2:45. This allows you to, check in, check your bag, get pictures with characters. There's some characters that will be out, you know, at the starting line and everything. You know, get a coffee, use the bathroom. We all know as runners that you want to get your morning coffee in as soon as possible and use the bathroom as soon as possible as well. For the fourth tip, this is if you are staying on Disney property, use the Disney transportation. So there will be buses that will pick up at the normal like bus stop at your resort, and they will take you to Epcot and to the starting line. If you're not staying on Disney property, it's not a big deal. For the 5K and 10K last year, I did not stay on Disney property. If you plan on driving and parking at Epcot, make sure to check the route like the night before, because with the marathon, there are a lot of roads that are closed. Right, so you want to make sure that your route doesn't have any detours or anything like that, or if it does, you can plan accordingly. If you're driving and parking, plan on like walking a mile or 2 miles before you even get to the start area or like the corral area. It won't really feel like that because you'll be thinking about the race, you'll be thinking about running and everything, but yeah, just keep that in mind, that it is like a mile or 2 miles. So for tip number 5, this does have to do a little bit with like after your race is done and if you plan on going into the parks, but it's basically just to have multiple pairs of shoes. The last thing that you want to do is run 26 miles and go to the parks in the same shoes and wear those around all day. So have a different pair of running shoes. You know, I'm doing the Dopey again this year and I have a different pair of shoes for every race, and then I also have more shoes for at the parks. So that's just a little thing. Like I don't think if you're doing the Dopey, you don't need to have 4 pairs of shoes. That's definitely kind of overkill, but I like to match them a little bit with my costume. So yeah, keep that in mind. You don't need 4 pairs of shoes. I would say, you know, 2 pairs of running shoes is great for the Dopey. You know, you can do the 5K, 10K, and even the half in 1 pair and then switch for the full marathon. But yeah, you do not want to be walking around the parks in the same shoes that you just ran a marathon in. Okay, next tip, costumes. This is about costumes. The first thing, if you're flying in, I highly recommend, you know, throwing an AirTag in your luggage, in your different bags that you have, just in case, you know, knock on wood, it gets lost, you'll be able to track it down and find it easily. Especially if you have like a connecting flight, it's always just better to, you know, stay on the safe side of things. I had an AirTag in every single one of my bags and I didn't even have a connecting flight, but I was just like, I'm not gonna risk it. I'll just throw it in there just to be safe. And yeah, it obviously worked out. No bags were lost or anything like that, but I would hate to have that happen, you know, marathon weekend. And specifically for your costumes, there are a lot more restrictions than there were last year. I'm not gonna go through them here, but you can, it's a quick and easy Google search. But along with the tip for the costumes, make sure to have warm and cold options for your costume. You know, it is Florida, but it's also Florida in January. So like the high can sometimes be like mid 60s and the low is like mid 40s. And keep in mind for the race, you're outside at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. So it's on the lower end of the temperature for the day. You also don't really know what the weather will be like as far as, you know, rain, snow, sleet, hail, God forbid, again, knock on wood. So you just want to have options. It's always good to have different options for your costume. Same thing with the AirTags, better safe than sorry. Now with being cold and it being, you know, 3:30, 4 a.m. and you're outside and it's freezing cold, that leads us to our next tip, which is have throwaways. So if you don't know this, any clothes that like you take off like a sweatshirt and throw it to the side, Disney will pick up all of those and donate them. So they're still going to a good cause. You know, a lot of people will go to like the Salvation Army and just buy a really cheap hoodie or whatever to stay warm. The Mylar blankets are great too, but before you go through the start line, you have to dish that off because it messes with the tracker in your bib, and that could give you an unofficial time. So there's like reminder after reminder after reminder. If you have a Mylar blanket, make sure to take it off before you run through the start line, da da da. You'll hear it over and over and over again. But those are great. They do give those out after like the half marathon. At least last year they gave it out after the half marathon. So then for the full marathon, I was able to have one in the morning because I just kept it. Also with throwaways, you didn't hear this from me, but if you're staying at a Disney resort, right, and they're gonna donate everything, there are people I've never done this personally, that will take a towel from the room and use that as their throwaway. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Just keep it in mind. All right. Last thing, I don't know why this is under my have throwaways tip, but sunscreen, it's a good tip. I don't know why it's under my have throwaways tip. But sunscreen, you can never be too safe. Throw some sunscreen on, you know, before you put on your throwaways. Maybe that's why I had it under that tip. I don't know. But yeah, put on sunscreen. You can never be too safe, especially if you're running a marathon. Or the marathon, I should say, and you know, you're not a fast runner like me and you're out there for, you know, 4 or 5.5 hours. So yeah, sunscreen's a great thing. This next one I also learned the hard way last year, and that is, you know, portable charger. You can never be too safe. Always great to have, you know, more battery life than less. And last year, I think that with my phone, with being connected to my watch and being connected to my headphones and being out and running for 5 hours, by the end of it was like the very end of the race, it died. So it survived the whole race, which is great, and it was the marathon. It wasn't like the half marathon or anything like that. But it's always good to have that portable charger if you have like a fanny pack or one of the vests, the water vests, that kind of thing. If you're able to carry one, highly recommend it, because you know, my phone died right as I was crossing the finish line, and then it took a little bit longer finding my family as a result. Which leads us into my next tip, which is communicating with your crew, whatever crew you're with for the marathon weekend, whether it's family, friends, or both. Communicate a plan of where you're gonna meet after the race. And that's mainly because the cell service is pretty spotty where the corrals are. So, you know, make sure that you have a plan with them, and if you're running the half marathon or the full marathon, you will run down Main Street USA, and if you have family or friends that will be cheering you on, let them know that they can get into the Magic Kingdom for free up through Main Street. They can't go into the actual park, but they can stand on Main Street and look for you as you're running down Main Street, which is like the best thing. Like, I'm literally getting chills just talking about it. But like, you know, a hug from mom on Main Street USA as you're running through the Magic Kingdom is it's incredible. One thing that we learned with this last year was to have a sign. The signs are great, the signs are funny. All the runners really appreciate the funny signs. So if you're watching this as a spectator, make sure you bring a funny sign. Do it for me, because I love seeing the funny signs. But the sign also helps to, for your runner to spot you easily on Main Street, because there's a lot of people, and it's quick, and it's very chaotic. So if you have your sign up and you're holding it, it'll be easier to spot the sign than it will be to spot you individually. Okay, last tip here, pictures. If you're running the Dopey, the 5K is not timed. So this is something where last year I did kind of like even walk run. This year I definitely plan on walking more and taking more pictures. I feel like I didn't get a lot of pictures with characters last year, and so I plan on taking advantage of that in the 5K because it's not timed. I'll just take my sweet time, get lots of pictures, and just kind of enjoy it. And then also, if you're running the marathon, or again, Goofy or Dopey challenge, typically the character lines towards the end of the race are not as busy. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, get off to a hot start, you know, do your thing, stick to your plan, of course, but don't feel bad that you're running past a lot of characters at the beginning. The character lines towards the end won't be as busy, so you can capitalize on it there. Okay, and then for my bonus tip, which is also about pictures, ironically, I didn't plan it that way, but it just, yeah. I guess I did kind of plan it that way. Anyways, if you're running the half marathon or the full marathon, you know what? I better check the map before, Okay, I checked the map, we're good. So, half marathon, full marathon, as you run through the Magic Kingdom, what you'll do is you'll kind of like go up Main Street and then around to Tomorrowland and then out and then through the castle, right? So when you're running through the castle, what I highly recommend you do is stay on the left side, okay? Because as you run out, there will be photographers taking pictures of you, or of everyone, really, right? So if you're on the left side, you're gonna be right in front of the photographer, and the pictures are awesome. It's a candid photo, obviously. Well, I guess you can kind of pose. I did like a little pose for the marathon because I knew it was coming. But yeah, highly recommend stay on the left side if it's crowded. I think that for the marathon, it wasn't as crowded. So keep that in mind. You'll get a picture like what you see on the screen. Oh! Another bonus tip. Okay, this is for my 5K and 10K peeps. Specifically, but really any race when it's dark, right? And you're like, where are the photographers? How you spot a photographer is you don't look for well, you can look for like, there's like this little like hut, this little tent that they're in. But what I was always looking for was the light. So when it's dark out, they have these lights that shine down in front of the photographer. So as you run over that light, it's like the perfect lighting for the photographer to get a snapshot of you. So be looking for those lights as you run through different parks. Because that's where they'll be, and you wanna, as you're running into the light, don't go into the light, you wanna do the pose as you're in the light, right? If you do it after that, it'll be too late, the lighting will be weird, it'll look like something like this, and that was like, I saw the photographer too late, and then it was like, it was not as good. So look for the light on the ground, and as you run through it, pose. So those are all of my tips, my 10 tips. Also for photos, you know, you gotta link it to your My Disney Experience app, and if you don't know how to do that, I've got a video, so click the screen. But best of luck in your races. If you see me, feel free to come up, say hi. I would love to chat. But best of luck in whatever race, whatever challenge you're doing. Have a magical time. And if you want to watch another video, click the screen right now and I will see you there. Peace.